The first two races of the season are essentially fantasies come true. First, putting dirt onto Bristol Motor Speedway, and now translating one of Papyrus's custom-built tracks onto the iRacing service. But the anxiety felt by the drivers is palpable, and the challenges that come with tackling the iRacing Superspeedway will involve patience and cunning. Let's see who comes away the winner as we get ready to watch round 2 of the PRL NASCAR Truck Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Chris Foby. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The best way to describe this circuit is simply as Talladega on steroids. It's every super speedway done bigger and badder. Let's head to our track guide to learn more about it. Welcome to iRacing Superspeedway. Back in the early 2000s, the developers at Papyrus were given the chance to create a circuit for their NASCAR racing games that removed any real-world limits. The idea was to amplify all of the qualities of Daytona and Talladega, and then unshackle the cars from restrictor plates since there were no safety concerns. The result was a 3-mile-long, 36-degree bank behemoth. Fast forward to modern day, and iRacing has now brought this track up to spec with their current standards. As you'd expect, this unbelievable creation makes for one of the most unique styles of sim racing. The slipstream allows drivers to stay with one another so easily that it becomes less about the speeds each driver can reach and more about the strategy of racing in a pack. Bump drafting is a technique in which the car behind actually pushes the car in front so that both are able to reach higher speeds. And side drafting is another in which the drivers use the air off the sides of their cars to slow their opponents down. Staying out of trouble is always a difficult aspect of superspeedway racing, and it's not uncommon to see drivers intentionally move to the back of the pack to avoid the chaos. In fact, the high speeds make large wrecks so hard to avoid that the term "the big one" has become commonplace to refer to the almost inevitable multi-car pileups the circuit is known for. Keeping the car clean and in contention is the main goal for much of the event. Despite these dangers, don't be surprised to see some drivers get ambitious and race 4 or even 5 wide at times. Often, for the final few laps, it's a race to the line with any alliances usually dissolving and the driver's urge to win taking over. While it might be a creation that we can't go race in the real world, what it does capture is the dreams we all have as children wondering, what if? And for that, it delivers for drivers and fans alike. Well, Chris, typically at most tracks here on iRacing, we have a reference of the real world to kind of size up what we expect things to be like. But putting the trucks out here, I mean, fill us in. What should we expect today?
Well, they're going to be holding down the gas pedal a lot. That's going to be the gist of it. This track is basically designed to be as fast as possible. No restrictor plates. They're going to be running wide open the whole way around. I think at certain points I've seen speeds as high as 230 miles an hour. And with the 36 degrees of banking, I mean, these trucks are basically glued to the track. So unless we see them making contact with each other, expect this to be basically a high-speed chess match, trying to be in the right place at the right time.
Sounds about right to me. So it'll be fascinating to watch, no doubt. Before we get to that racing, though, let's talk about how today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net.
The PRL NASCAR Truck Series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader, ready to compete against the financial markets, supporting over 60,000 users across the globe. NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. As we take a glance now at the championship points after last round, it's honestly pretty much how they finished. Richard Regan Jr. leading the way, Josh Conker with second place, and Daniel Knight in third, with Ferguson and Chatley rounding out your top five, and not much spreading them apart. Of course, this is a bit of a gamble today, so they could wind up all over the place. Pace doesn't necessarily mean anything here. What about the team's championship, Chris? How was that?
Well, the private label Team Hype team, after sweeping the couple podium spots last week, they are on top of the charts over the Car Ramrod squad. Just a couple markers back from them are the Riding Shotgun Rangers, followed by the Whataback Next Level Racing team, just one further point back, and then just one more point back is the Rescue Graphics Whataback team.
Of course, we also have our race details in case we've got new viewers to get you up to speed. Race 2 out of 10. 55 laps they'll be running here. However, it is limited to 1 hour. So the drivers do have to avoid those cautions if they want to complete all 55 of those laps. It is a fixed setup series, so at least they have that equalized between all the trucks. But there is also a 24 incident limit that is strict. That is not a drive-through penalty. You will be disqualified if you hit that many. Considering the speeds here today, though, unless you happen to just get too hard of a bump draft, I'm not sure that we'll see many drivers rack up incidents without it being a huge whomp into the wall. Just waiting for the practice session to wrap up. We head off to qualifying for 2 laps. I'm just going to take a wild guess on that qualifying, Chris, that second lap is going to be the money lap.
I would think so. They're definitely going to want to be bumping up the momentum and getting these trucks as wound up as possible.
So right now, Adam Zemke currently has our quickest lap of the drivers in warm-up. Canova is doing quite well, and I don't think we saw him last week. Josh Canova in the 87. I think is a new name out there. We're watching from onboard Nick Schwartz. You can see just how fast it is around here, 200 plus through the corners as this truck then swings on to the back stretch. Just a couple of cars now practicing amongst each other, and this is something they've been doing a lot as well, I noticed in the practice, and they talked about this in the forums before the race as well, Chris. It seemed that the real focus for a lot of drivers is on the pack racing, not necessarily finding speed around here, just getting used to being around one another at these speeds.
Yeah, these drivers are going to be basically rubbing elbows out there. I mean, they're going to be very close together.
This is Daniel Ferguson that we're watching right now. We've got a few onboards that we'll go through once we get through the qualifying and head to our warm-up lap here. But Ferguson chasing behind Sumner and Richter right now. He looked pretty casual, actually, kind of glancing around, bobbing his head to, I'm not sure if he was listening to some tunes or not. Did not seem as focused as I would have expected.
Yeah, you'd think racing that close to each other, they wouldn't have a problem. But yeah, he's pretty relaxed there.
Other interesting thing that I'm noticing is I'm looking at lap times. You typically at the places like Dega and Daytona see the times pretty close up and down the field, but I'm looking at nearly a second and a half difference between first and 33rd. I wonder if that's due to just the incredible runs they're able to get without those restrictor plates on.
That wouldn't surprise me too much, Joe. I mean, the draft is probably going to be that much more effective without the restrictor plates kind of bogging them down. So it doesn't surprise me at all to see that big of a difference.
Of course, they will have laps by themselves out there, so they will not have the advantage of the draft to try and go quicker there, as Looks like Richter, actually, you can see him ducking off in that red and black 51 towards pit lane. Looks like it should be at least a little bit more straightforward trying to pit in than it is at places like Daytona and Talladega, since they have the entry on a straightaway and not ducking immediately off, as someone was sent to the heavens there as we head off to our qualifying session. The warm-up now wrapping up, the checkered flag waves, and the drivers have to prepare themselves to try and be as smooth as possible for 2 flying laps around here. Granted, as we always like to say on the Superspeedway tracks, Chris, the qualifying doesn't matter as much. So as some of them now start to work their way out, looks like actually Richter might be our first driver to make headway onto the circuit proper in that number 51. So looks like most of them not wasting too much time. Does take a bit to get around here at nearly 50 seconds to try and get a competitive lap in. And they only have 5 minutes to try and compete. See Chatley already working his way out. Hopefully we have a number of drivers to try to put a qualifying in. We know that Superspeedway racing often sees drivers decide not to qualify to put themselves at the back, but we've also had cases where more than half the field sometimes have not qualified, and that kind of backfires for a few of the drivers. Richter in that 51 comes across the line and flies into turn 1 for the first time. Again, we expect this will not decide the position this first lap, as they're still picking up tremendous speed. I can report that Richter going about 210, 211 right now. Stalling out at about that quick as he starts to tilt inwards towards the infield, down through 3 and 4. And coming off those final couple corners, let's see what our first lap time is going to be like amongst our drivers. Crosses the line, and it is a 50.7. Let's see what the others have managed. All about trying to be as smooth as possible with those inputs. A few clocking in. Richter's still the highest. Corzin has got himself onto the front row. We're watching Daniel Ferguson now, California driver, taking that 6.76 down and across. His lap time is a 50.8. We've also had Josh Conker go faster than Mike Richter, so he takes the top spot away. Richter, of course, going to be the first to get his second lap as well. And here we go. Can he improve those 12 1,000ths? Down and across the line. No, he was actually slower that time. Canova goes fastest now in that 87. Greg Corzin in there. Doug Evans up to the top spot. Still waiting for a lot of drivers to get out there, and I think we might not see them actually get up there. Conker, a 50.4, a 10th ahead of Doug Evans. That is a huge gap. Looks like Elliott White now coming around, sitting 15th after his first time across. The 27 flies down the front stretch. Let's see what this one marks. 51.4 for the first lap, 50.5 for the second lap, and that is good enough for second place. So we're lacking, wow, a good dozen cars, maybe more than that, including some of our front runners. Guys like Hunter, Bradley Hawley have not qualified. We're running out of time. In fact, they are out of time to try and put a lap in. As Brett Adams crosses Brett moves himself up to 15th with that second lap, and that should be everybody. Daniel Knight slows on the backstretch after his single lap. So Medina, obviously, actually, is Medina, he does have the chance to, no, Medina's finished his 2 laps, excuse me, so he's going to stay in third no matter what here. And that will complete our qualifying. This should be a fascinating afternoon of racing here, with more than 30 cars looking to compete after Bristol and the chaos that we witnessed on the dirt. Will it be more of that craziness, or will this be smooth sailing until the end? With the session over, our grid order is set. Let's go through our qualifying. It was Josh Conker who started on the pole, with Matthew Kulhanek in second and Jose Medina in third. Elliott White starts P4 with Doug Evans in the 5th position. Justin Kreiner starts 6th, followed by Brandon Adams in 7th. Outside of that row, it's Josh Canova in 8th. Abner Acosta qualifies 9th, and Nick Schwartz rounds out your top 10.
Outside of the top 10, in 11th spot is Greg Corzin, followed by Brendan Chatley. Outside of him, Adam Zemke and Austin Hunter make up row number 7, with Brett Adams and Daniel Ferguson in row number 8. Mike Richter and Daniel Knight are row 9th, with Marcus Miller and Bradley Holly completing the top 20.
21st goes to Dominic Pagine, with Colton Lane in 22nd, Danny Cervantes in 23rd, and Charles Sumner in 24th. These are all drivers basically allotted in by their iRating. Westerfield, Kalen Sink, Adam Young, Adam Shane, John LaBaff, Patrick Cowgill, Nicholas Hunter, Baron Hilton, and Dalton Geyer. 34 trucks out there today. Some of them couldn't qualify due to EOLs. Cowgill, Kalen, Geyer, Sumner are the 4 that were given penalties recently. Were not allowed to take onto the track, but that doesn't account for all of the others that decided they did not want to here today. Now, we mentioned our onboards, and I believe we'll be hopping over to those here in a second to give you an idea of all the different views. This is, I think, the most we've had so far of drivers showing up. This is, of course, Nick Hunter and Brett. This is Patrick Cowgill, Brendan Chatley, and Nick Hunter. Some of them aware that they are on screen now, it seems.
Yeah, this is a neat little update that that we've had on the broadcast here, Joe. It's nice to see Brendan Chatley putting in the extra mile to actually have a background printed.
Yeah, some of them have certainly gone above and beyond. And our second group, of course, looking at Nick Hunter, Brett Adams, and Daniel Ferguson. Of course, I love seeing the different setups as well, with Hunter sporting a VR set, the other 2 with a more traditional lineup. So we now take off on that pace lap and work their way towards the start-finish line. What do you think we'll see today, Chris?
You know, I will be honest, this track is a bit of a wild card. I think some of what we see may probably throw us for a loop. I'm expecting similar racing to what we see at Talladega or Daytona, but I really think there's a good chance that this could be completely out of left field, what we see today.
Coming through 3 and 4 now. The pace truck is going to give way, and Josh Conker will have control of the field. Waiting for Barney to whip that green flag around. Pace truck is in. They are going to go on green, which waves now. And they are off and running for 55 laps here in round 2 of the PRL NASCAR Truck Series. Josh Conker with a big start, and from what we know about superspeedway racing, that's not exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, the last thing you want is to be out there on your own, to have the field be able to bunch up and gang up on you. And unfortunately, Josh Conker right now is in that position. So looks like the field is beginning to form up a little bit more spread out at the back, but it's going to be hard to miss the draft here with this many trucks punching that big of a hole in the air, Joe.
And it looks like someone's already dropping to the back. That's Kulhanik, who's going to the high side and just letting a lot of drivers kind of sweep on through. So far, so good. This looks relatively calm. A little bit of three-wide racing, but that is no problem here. Look at how wide it is. Someone in the very, very back looked like they brushed the wall. I think that was Adam Shane, but hopefully that didn't cause him too much damage.
Yeah, it's that is a little more difficult to do here than you would expect, Joe. I mean, the way this track just kind of holds you down, it's kind of like the effect of having a marble inside of a cup, and you spin the cup around, and the marble just goes around and around the cup and doesn't come off the side no matter where it's at. I mean, this track is basically a centrifugal force personified as a racetrack.
Getting very single file early on. Drivers did mention that the low line seems to be favored here today, and all 33 of them pretty much running along that yellow line. Just a few of them up high, not sure if they're dropping back or if they just can't find an opening that they'd like. Conker going up high now. Maybe he doesn't want to lead for much longer. Looks like that's going to be Elliott White now, who comes in behind them. You know, this makes me wonder as well. Maybe it's not as good of an idea to lead, considering how much fuel that's going to suck up.
Yeah, exactly. You got to think everyone else behind you can coast a little bit. I mean, relatively speaking, coast. And you're the one punching that hole in the air. And keep in mind, there's no restrictor plates. I mean, these guys are just full out pedal to the floor. And that is going to definitely going to use up the fuel as we take a look alongside Brett Adams here. You can see pretty focused on what he's doing there. And you can see these drivers are going to try to put as little steering input as possible without the benefit of the restrictor on the engine. And with the fact that this is like full speed pedal to the metal, you want as little steering input as possible, Joe, because any little movement in that wheel is speed that you're scrubbing up.
Starting to see a bit of a high line form up with some of our drivers. It looks like Chatley is leading that one in the 59 right now, but Elliott White is leading on the bottom line. He's being pushed to Doug Evans behind him in the 41. So maybe the high line is viable here this afternoon. Chatley has Austin Hunter behind him in the 312. Greg Corzen's third in line on that bottom side. Look at him come back on the front stretch. Great push there.
You're right, Joe. That was a amazing push. I mean, these guys are really doing a masterful job here in the opening 5 laps of this type of racing.
And remember, when they were by themselves, we saw 211 max at the end of the straightaway. Austin Hunter right now, 228. This is Chatley that we're on board with. Brennan, 229 before he sends it into the corner. Watching his on board now as he promotes his sponsors dutifully. Once again, falls back around the outside, but he and Austin Hunter have been working very, very well together. And once again, gives him a gigantic shove, and he starts to gain, but he's not going to be as far alongside this time.
I love watching these trucks go through the corner here, Joe. I mean, it's just so amazing how wide it is and how banked it is. The way they're just able to all run in kind of lockstep formation. It's just really cool here.
It is fascinating. It's almost a science experiment. Oh, and we got an accident forming behind them. I think that is Josh Canova in the 87 that started that one, and we may have gotten away lucky with just a couple winding up involved. Let's take a look at the replay. I think it was a miscommunication between himself and Brett Adams in the 23. Right below him, you see here, watch as they come into the corner. that is the 911 of John LaBaff that he got into. LaBaff with a big hit. So he wound up on his lid. The 87 of Canova went for a spin cycle. And then the only other car I'm seeing really majorly involved, I think, is Daniel Knight in the 17. And there you go. The tilt-a-whirl, unfortunately, is out of order.
And you could see with that caution, Joe, that's exactly why you don't have a racetrack like this in real life.
Yeah, the G-forces of that sort of hit to the wall probably would have left the driver mush inside. The advantages of us being able to do this. And it's funny, I've heard a lot of debate about this track, and I can understand both sides of the concern about a circuit being created from thin air, I guess, if you will, on the iRacing service. But you know, one thing that struck me, Chris, is that SimRacing is essentially the SimRacers' chance to pretend and ask, like I said earlier, what if we could be race car drivers? And I feel like this is in the spirit of that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think at a certain point, us as iRacers can take ourselves a little bit too seriously. And sometimes we want this to be so realistic and so lifelike that we don't want to have fun with it, if that makes any sense. And tracks like the iRacing Superspeedway and, you know, the little things like the picture of Dale Jr. that they put at the different tracks, I mean, that's us having fun with the benefits of this platform.
See a few drivers that ducked into pit lane. Kulhanek, Conker, Canova. Looks like Schwartz is in. Brett Adams probably to repair his damage. Abner Acosta. I'm wondering if this is drivers trying to take a fuel stop, since some of them, I'm pretty certain, didn't get involved in that incident, shouldn't have had any damage. We're on board right now with one of them that did not stop. That's Charles Sumner. In fact, it looks like 12 of our 34 starters did not pit this time. LaBaff and Canova, unfortunately, have had to take a tow, so they appear to be done for the day with those big crashes into 3 and 4.
Yeah, the fact that these guys don't have an extra truck and that they basically just launched themselves into orbit does sound like a pretty valid reason to park it for the race.
Okay, so should get a restart in the next couple laps, but if they wind up staying green to the end, will this call to come in for a stop wind up helping a number of drivers? The highest of those is Kulhanek at the moment in the number 89. We're only 8 laps in the 55, but that's almost 20% of the way through the race, almost a fifth of the way into this thing. So not too bad of a call, just a little early. And Nick Schwartz, who was our last driver to have not pitted, changed his mind, and he is now coming in.
And by pitting that 1 lap later, he'll have 1 extra lap of fuel on the drivers that pit the last time.
Lights are off on the pace truck, so we go double file for the restart here. Let's see if anybody plays things any differently. A few of them definitely decided to head backwards. Kulhanek was one of those we mentioned, and the 89 who pretty much on the first lap got out of the way of everyone and dropped as far back as he could go to try and find some safety. Of our big movers who at least did qualify, looks like Richter is up 10 spots. There you can see on your screen. Sumner's up 16 rather, but he did not qualify. Also see, it looks like Miller up by 8 spots as he did put a time in. Dan Geyer, I think, is another one that, yeah, he was not allowed to qualify. So even though he's gone up a lot of positions, he had to start from the back due to his penalty. Lap 9, going to restart on lap 10. What did you garner out of that, Chris? Anything come as a surprise to you, or did everything go as expected?
You know, the one thing that popped up that I didn't think about until we actually got into the racing was the fact that the way this track is set up, being the leader is really a disadvantage for a good portion of this, because you're the guy punching the hole in the air that everybody's following, and that's going to suck up the gas quite a bit.
So unfortunately, I'm not sure how well our pole sitter will go from here since he was involved in that wreck, and he's down in 27th. The pace truck is in, and the green flag is out. Elliott White is leading the way this time. He is with Doug Evans, but Evans sees an opportunity to slot in the line behind him. He jumps off of the high line immediately. So that gives Greg Kors in the top spot, but he's being hung out to dry. Everybody behind him is ditching that top spot as quickly as they can. Kors sees at least one friend in front of him. Oh, maybe two. The 312 of Austin Hunter, along with Chatley, deciding they want to try that high line yet again. They were working it before the first caution. Big push from the 312. Now they hit the corner and he backs off.
And a nice little gap forming up there but on that inside line that looks like it's closing up now, but and actually looks like a truck's going to fill up that gap, and another defector to the inside line.
Where are our competitors for the championship as well? I have to wonder. Conker was one of them. We already talked about him. Richard Regan Jr. not here today, curiously. And Daniel Knight. Knight sits down in 23rd, so he is obviously biding his time a little bit, waiting for the race to come to him. And that accounts for our top three in the race. A little bit of a bobble there from the 312 on the entry into the corner.
Yeah, there is the way the banking kind of aligns can be a bit jarring if you're not quite perfectly expecting it.
And that top line still only has a few holders on. Drivers that don't want to try and give it the ghost. Four of them currently. Chatley up at the front. Second in line is Austin Hunter. And you've got Mike Richter and Charles Sumner wrapping that up. I believe, I want to say a couple of those drivers are teammates. Great pushing has been going on for the entire race, though, between Hunter and Chatley. And that continues. We hop on board, watching from the perspective of, I believe this is Charles Sumner right now in 9th place. Not a lot to see back there, which is the other thing that I find interesting, Chris, is the cab and the rear wing of these trucks. When you get right up on there, it looks like the visibility is actually kind of low.
Yeah, that's a fair point as well. It's actually hard to see much further beyond the truck in front of you.
Oh, we got someone else jumping up to the high line. This time it's Adam Zemke in the 57. So that makes it 5 up at the top. They're starting to spread apart a little bit from the group behind. Colton Lane is down in 12th. He's losing a gap, but if he jumps up top, it looks like Sumner and Richter are there to be grabbed upon. Let's see if he chooses to get with them or if he wants to stick with that low line. Another one getting up on the high side ahead of Zemke. This time it's Greg Korsen. And we're going to get a third lane going. Chatley and Hunter do not want to be behind anybody. They like being at the front of their train. So they're going to go up to the top side. And this will actually leave the 111 out to dry, unfortunately. Greg Korsen has to get back down low. And I do believe it looks like Colton Lane is catching slightly, so the 60 has reeled it in to within 0.4 of a second. I think he'll be able to join this group sooner rather than later.
That wouldn't surprise me one bit. I think this is the type of track that definitely suits Colton Lane's driving style. I think basically just going all the way with that pedal mashed, I think that's right up his alley. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him be a factor here the later we get into this race.
Elliott White is still our leader, and now the dual lines have disappeared. Everybody's decided it's better to just cruise for the time being. So it's White, Evans, Kreiner, Miller, Adams, and Zemke, your top 6. Look at them snake down the front stretch. All of them hugging the bottom, even down the straightaways. We are still with 31 trucks on track, still racing. Medina, Canova, LaBeouf are your retirements, though we're waiting for Medina and Canova to call it official. They've been taking repairs for 8+ minutes, each of them.
And it is so cool to see this huge line of trucks just speeding around this place. I mean, you got to think, there's probably some Papyrus developers out there who are seeing this track come to life, and on this service at least, and they got to just be absolutely stoked to see how this is going.
Yeah, it's was first released in 2003 under a different name, and now it is here as iRacing Superspeedway, all gussied up, if you will, for the iRacing service down the backstretch once again. Not seeing a whole lot of action except for in the very back of the field, a few of them fanning out. It looks like that's guys like Baron Hilton, Nick Schwartz, I see. Some dropping to the back. Josh Conker, I think, one of those who's damaged and going a lap down. Here we see Schwartz in amongst there in the car 44, chasing number 47.
And I think this is kind of a, I don't want to call it a consequence, this style of racing, but this is what we get from basically these drivers wanting to survive to the end. This type of racing really has two outcomes. One is where everybody goes for it every lap, and then we end up with like 5 trucks running at the end. Or we have this portion where everybody plays it slow, bides their time a little bit, and then we're going to see the intensity ramp up the further into the race we get.
It's like that, I can never remember the name, but the cycle racing on the bank tracks that everybody just does not want to be the leader and is waiting for the end to really hustle. As one of them jumps out of line yet again. I think that was Marcus Miller up at the front. Speaking of which, I believe we've got 2 of our drivers on board. We check in with Austin Hunter and Brennan Chatley one more time. Now, it looks like they may have separated a little bit. We're on board with Austin Hunter. He's the one second in line. And definitely, again, very, very calm, especially compared to last night where we had sports cars at Sebring and drivers just could not take their eyes off, whereas these guys kind of stretching, taking a drink, just looking around, casually making sure that everything's going smoothly still. Like you said, just kind of biding their time.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked at how relaxed these guys look. I've never been able to be that relaxed while racing, iRacing. Usually I have my teeth grit and usually muttering some swear words to myself as I wreck, but these guys definitely look calm and collected there as they look like they're out for a nice little Sunday drive.
Absolutely. You can see them talking a bit. I imagine they're probably in communication with teammates, especially at a plate, or well, I call it a plate track, a super speedway like this. 20 laps into this thing now, getting ready to head into lap 21. The orders change slightly at the front. It's White, Evans, Kreiner, Adams, Zemke, your top 5. Now, Zemke was in the mix at Bristol until late in the race when he got involved in some accidents. I'm sure he's going to want to make up for that. And so far, he's been keeping himself in contention, so it's looking good till now. Only driver a lap down is Brett Adams in the 31st position. Everybody else still running on the lead lap and actually still with this pack too. Daniel Ferguson, the last one in 30th place, and has the slipstream if he wants it. Honestly, doesn't seem like a bad idea because he's only 0.3 of a second behind, and it seems like you have to go way far back to really lose that draft. as they come down into 1 and 2 yet again. Getting close to the halfway mark now. We're still missing a number of drivers with pit stops. Marcus Miller, Austin Hunter, Brendan Chatley, Mike Richter, Charles Sumner, Greg Corzin, Zemke, Brandon Adams, Greiner, Evans, White still need to come in. They cannot make it on fuel for the full 55 laps. Everybody behind them, though, we are unsure what the mileage is going to be like on a track as quick as this, going this long.
Yeah,
watch. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, there really is no benchmark for this track. I mean, there's so much that nobody knows yet as far as how this track will actually be in competition.
Absolutely. We're watching from the last driver in line, Daniel Ferguson. There we can see him. Another one just looks quite casual. He's definitely got a 3-screen setup from what you can see. One of his off to the side there. Eyes just darting around, spotting what his competition is doing, probably looking at times. You can see him chatting away. And also, what's interesting to note is you can see the different wheel rims that he's got off to the side, too.
Yeah, definitely not using the standard issue G920 that a lot of us use.
Yeah, I love that he's got the F1 ones off to the side, and it does look like he's got a full circular wheel NASCAR style currently hooked up. Kind of match what you can see from his screen as we watch from on board, as we continue to see his face and just communicating bit by bit. And there's the damage on the 23 Brett Adams that I mentioned being a lap down. You could see it from that onboard. Big scrape on the left side, definite dent in the rear of that tailgate, and mostly just kind of cruising around, hoping that somebody else has some issues so he can garner a few points. Once again, very different situation. You can see them spread out all in their own lane at the back there, Chris. And here it is ride the tire tracks, don't move.
Yeah, this is the ants go marching 1 by 1 around the track here. These guys just want to be able to make it to the finish, Joe. And that's not an easy task when these guys are battling it out. So they're pacing themselves. And like I said, expect the intensity to really ramp up here in the next probably 15, 20 laps. Once we get within throwing distance of the finish here, these guys are really going to let it all hang out and make it a little chaotic.
Now, here's one thing that I imagine should translate, at least somewhat closely, is what do you think the temperatures are doing with a lot of these trucks? Do you think maybe that seeing some of them occasionally pop out to try and control things? Because it is a fixed setup, so everybody's going to be the same on that. But do you think they're far enough apart that that's kind of a non-issue?
I have noticed they are keeping a pretty good gap from one another. I mean, I would still probably expect them to maybe take a peek out every now and then to get a little fresh air in the nose of the car, or in the nose of the truck. But it doesn't look like they're staying very closely bunched together, so I imagine they're breathing all right.
Cowgill, who is currently behind the 60 of Colton Lane. Another of our drivers that did not qualify and could not qualify, started from 31st, and he's up to 12th, so easily overcame that disadvantage. Looking at a train of cars in front of them, but not as many as there were at the drop of the green flag.
You can see a cool little die-cast collection he's got over his shoulder there, Joe. One thing that's really cool about this little peek into the driver's room, so to speak, is get a little bit of the personality that we don't always get to pick up in our short little interviews.
Who told you that I could get into their rooms?
So this is kind of like Monsters, Inc., right?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I couldn't resist when you mentioned the peak. Anyways, we have now hit the halfway mark officially on this race, and only a single caution knocking on wood. Hopefully we'll see no more, if not many more, in the remainder of things, because so far this has been fascinating to see unfold. Now we are starting to get a couple more lines forming up, 3 wide for a brief moment. I think that's Adam Shane popping up on the second line, and then Mark Kalin getting some help from Adam Young. A big push, in fact, on the very top line coming down the backstretch, but Adam had a bit of trouble trying to link up with Kalin there. Almost looked kind of squirrely for a second.
Yeah, there's not a huge margin for error here. I mean, you don't link up and just right, and it can be a huge mess.
Yeah, the one instance we had was not from foolish racing. The only wreck we saw was just two drivers going for the corner and not realizing that one wasn't ducking down as low as the other thought he was, and then they found themselves spinning and flipping. Watching from onboard, Kalin looking back, and now we hop back off as they very quickly catch Adam Shane. Now it becomes a 3-car train, make that 4 as Kulhanek links up, then Danny Cervantes and Baron Hilton. Elliott White announcing he's pitting in. Ooh, and a few drivers bobbling a bit, some of them having to take evasive action, no caution. Elliott, ooh, he was in at a high rate of knots. I think he managed to do it without getting a speeding penalty.
Yeah, he was definitely cooking it as they came in, so hopefully he was able to get it slowed down in time.
Now, do they need tires? It's a very hot day on the track surface. Ah, he is taking tires. Looks like a couple behind him are as well. 103 Fahrenheit that they're dealing with on the pavement. Mark Kalin now takes over the lead because of the few pitters that we had. Well, he did, and then Charlie Sumner finds himself up at the front, but he's pitting now. Boy, it's a rough transition off that banking. Looks like they all managed it, but the trucks actually bounce when they hit the flat. Let's watch from onboard Sumner. Great example right here of what they're feeling. Hopefully nobody's got a motion rig so that thing is jostling them around. The Tropicana car going to come off of 4, and then watch this thing just bound around. Good chunk.
Yeah, you have one of those butt kicker setups, Joe, and that'll knock some of your fillings loose.
It'll take care of your next doctor's visit for you. So as we come around the leaders, are we going to get more of them down and in under green flag stops? Not quite. A few of them maybe who look like they've tried to fake it, though. I thought I saw someone suddenly whip back up to the line. But actually, yeah, that is everybody who needs to pit that has pitted. So now we should essentially have 2 different groups, some of them a lap down as they return to the track. And we have to wonder, will this lead group need to pit yet again? Is it early enough that they can't make it on fuel? We're watching from Nick Hunter. And this is always a unique example. The VR headset, we're used to drivers looking around, watching their eyes, kind of catching things, but actually looking to the apex, looking at mirrors physically is a whole different beast.
Yeah, that's one thing I've never been able to commit to is that VR setup. Personally, it doesn't quite work for my particular vision challenges. But those guys that can make it work, it seems to be super beneficial. And also very brave of him to actually want to be on camera while using a VR headset. Because
a few of them.
I always feel like there's a high chance of looking goofy and not knowing it.
We've definitely had a few ever since we've introduced this feature, and it has been very enlightening. I've enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, seeing VR users on stream. Boy, shooting up the middle right now is Justin Kreiner. Usually we talk about the sucker hole when we talk about running 3 wide in a super speedway, but the 49 blasted past a bunch of other trucks.
Maybe it works out a little differently when you have a track that's as wide as a airport as an airport runway.
Yeah, that could be part of it for sure. He had plenty of space to try and make use of it, and this nearly gave him the lead. He's getting some help from behind with the 27 of Elliott White back out there. However, Elliott White is a lap down. Remember, he had to come in and pit under green, so he's not racing for position. If anything, I think he's trying to stay in the best spot for the lucky dog here. And Kreiner as well. Kreiner is a lap down, so this means that Kalen is still our leader. So this is all Chatley, White, and Kreiner fighting to be the one to get that lucky dog.
So, of course, that makes things even more stressful for Kalen there, because this is a battle for a lot right in front of him while he's trying to lead the race.
Granted, now that I say that, those three will get their lap back when the caution comes out. The lucky dog instead would be Austin Hunter in 23rd spot in the 312. Instead, it means that Hunter now wants to try and get ahead of Kalen himself, as they're going to go right on past the slow car of Jose Medina. "20 laps to go now, Chris. Only a single caution thus far. And the farther this goes, the more it's looking like those drivers who did not pit on that lone caution are starting to feel some regret."
Yeah, this is going to be a challenge to get the green flag pitting right, as we see a bunch of drivers head to pit road.
Never mind. So it looks like they couldn't make it on fuel. There was a few that were very, very fast down on the pit lane, and it's, I believe, 65 miles an hour. Adam Young yeah, he was awful fast. I think we might see a penalty. Let's watch as the Texan takes his tires. If he has a penalty, he'll have to serve it here while sitting and taking his fuel and have extra time added on. No, 12.8 seconds. That is a clean stop for him.
Now, a few of my iRacing spies out there, Joe, that knows some tips and tricks to the game, not the game. Whoa, to the. I'll finish this thought in a moment as our leader comes to pit road.
Yeah, Acosta, Conker, and Ferguson are in. Where is our next one? I think Mark Kalen. Yeah, Kalen is just exiting now, picking up speed on the backstretch as the leaders go through, and he is actually going to be left in the dust. Look at how many of them are getting by easily.
Well, getting back to that thought, Joe, real quick, there is a way to kind of play a game with the pit entrance. You can time it just right, almost like the way they do in real life in NASCAR, where you can come in kind of hot, but if you slow down just enough and just at the right time, you can kind of game the penalty there a little bit.
Yeah, the speed traps, I suppose, a little bit farther down, which they're averaging out. It's a good point. That as long as the overall pace is where they want it, then they tend to turn a blind eye.
I'm glad you could put that thought together, Joe, because apparently I couldn't.
Well, up at the front, the 49 of Justin Kreiner back to the lead with White pushing him along on the lead lap. And let's see, do we have a gap between those who pitted, or if they've all been able to link up? I'm seeing if we've lost a few. Looks like, yeah, okay, so the biggest gap we've got up towards the front is Ferguson, who's about 4 seconds back. He's sitting in ninth. He's going to get some help, though. He's now got Danny Cervantes going past, but wow, much, much faster. Ferguson can do nothing here. He can't even duck behind them quick enough.
Yeah, the speed differential here is amazing for these trucks that are trying to merge back into traffic.
So it looks like we'll know for the future races, pit strategy really is one of the major factors in determining how you wind up come the end of the race, especially if things stay green. because those who were out really pushing up at the front were so much quicker than them. They were just not able to catch the draft and have since been delegated towards the end of the field. Cervantes with Mark Kalin now helping, trying to see if he can get him up to speed.
Boy, the truck of Kalin was so close. I think Cervantes was getting ready to maybe tell him what he had for lunch.
All right, we're down to 15 to go next time by at the line. Your top group is composed of 8 drivers: Kreiner, White, Chatley, Sumner, Zemke, Evans, Hunter, and Richter. Unless we get a caution, they are looking the most likely to be challenging for the victory. Cervantes, who is the front of the group, the next one back, has 5 seconds to try and make up, and though they do have a big group together, I'm not sure how they're going to make all that up in so little time.
No surprise to see Brendan Chatley up here as we ride along with him. Brendan, one of those drivers that has been very vocal about the fact that he doesn't mind playing things a little bit different as far as strategy goes from time to time. So, of course, a race where this is very strategy dependent, you have Brendan Chatley up there right in the mix for the win.
Absolutely. Good catch on that. And Elliott White is the one that we see in front of him in that black and yellow 27. Weston Kreiner in front of him as soon as he's been pushing. And for the first time, we've seen a car really push almost consistently, and that, again, brings worries. What is the car like when you stay tucked up for that long? Does he need to watch the meters inside, the gauges inside the car, in case it gets too hot?
Well, as you can see, these guys are racing a lot closer together than they were towards the middle of the race. And that is something they need to be cognizant of, is the fact that those temperature gauges can end up getting pegged running this close together. Oh, as we see some competition going on up front.
I think that was just things getting shaky for a moment. Chatley had to dodge down to the inside as they suddenly found themselves bumping around. Charles Sumner in the moments there, and that 98 truck now finds his way back into line in 4th.
Yeah, just everyone kind of scrambled there for a second, but looks like they've gathered it back up.
We're down to 27 trucks on the lead lap. And otherwise, it's not been too crazy. Had a single yellow flag incident, but multiple green flag stops. Kind of wondering what Brandon Adams has up his sleeve now that he's in. Brandon is also a lap down. Looks like the 28 not involved in this. He is our lucky dog currently, so excuse me. Patrick Cowgill now up at the front of that second pack, having moved ahead of Cervantes. It's 4.9 seconds, but it seems to be wavering between that and about 5.3. I haven't seen them gone any lower than that 4.9, 4.8.
Well, I think part of that is just they're very disorganized back here compared to the top 8 runners. I think if these guys could really kind of focus on a common goal here and get linked up for a minute, I think they might have a shot at least getting close to that lead pack, but it seems like everyone's kind of scrambled back there.
This is Cowgill's perspective. He's riding in 11th. Currently actually pushing along Daniel Ferguson in that 6.76. Yeah, I think you're right that it does look like drivers have not really organized themselves well enough in this second group. We can't see it from this onboard, but behind, they're kind of scattered about in 2 rough lines, but not very accurate lines. Now, moving to 3 lines, way up high, Baron Hilton brings along Abner Acosta. last season's second place finisher in that number 5, doesn't seem to be liking this track as he's not been in the hunt for things pretty much all day.
Yeah, a lot of our usual suspects haven't really been feeling it today. You mentioned Acosta, Bradley Holly uncharacteristically down in 13th. You have Thomas Sink and Daniel Knight mired back in the pack as well. So this track has really thrown a lot of our regulars for a loop.
Down to 10 laps to go already. That second pack still 5 seconds behind. I just think it's going to take a caution for them to have any sort of hope, unless we get a wreck on the last lap. Remember, no cautions on the white flag lap. So if the lead group winds up getting into one another, that second group can suddenly burst through it and find themselves taking a surprise win.
Yeah, I mean, it may look relatively calm at this point, but this type of racing, anything can happen.
Now, we often talk about on super speedways, Chris, where do you want to be? First in line, second in line, third in line? What's the best place? This one, the runs are so huge. Put yourself in their shoes. Where do you want to be?
So ideally, if I could have things the exact way that I would want right now, I would be Patrick Cowgill. But everyone behind me wouldn't be 3 wide. We'd all be one organized line and just get that big head of steam, run down that gap. And I really think if they could all just link up and keep things organized, I think they would have a chance at running them down.
Well, what about on the lead lap? Let's say you're in the front group. Where in line do you want to be out of these top 8?
Out of the top 8, I would like to be 7th. Back off a little bit with somebody behind you pushing, and then in the last couple laps, just hammer down and run to that high side and hope you can do that little 2-car tango deal and maybe run your way up to the front.
Very clever. Well, 7th in line right now is Austin Hunter. Mike Richter is behind him. They also actually have a lapped truck, Marcus Miller, and that could play a part of it since he has nothing but his own allegiances, whatever they may be, in this, since he's not going to be getting a win. I guess he could be the pusher in that case.
That is a fair point as well.
7 laps to go now. Kreiner still on the point. White running in second and Chatley in third. Sumner running P4, Zemke 5th, Evans 6th, Hunter 7th, and Richter in 8th. Off of turn 4. Once again, just keeping the truck as down low as they can go, right up to the yellow line, making sure that nobody advantage and take the inside line away from you, costing you the track position. This is the lowest I've seen this number yet. Patrick Calgo gets it down to 4.6. That's not enough inroads, but it's a promising sign.
It's definitely progress, and would love to see that gap smooth up even more. You see Abner Acosta gets right to his back bumper.
As they go past the lapped car once again, the number 23 of Brett Adams. Like you said, just so wide. It didn't really cause too much of a problem.
Yeah, thankfully for Brett, there's plenty of room to get out of the way.
The second group is looking at 4 wide potentially. Someone shooting the middle there. And I think that is the 54 of Josh Conqueror. I can't believe Josh is back in this thing. I would think he'd have too much damage to be any sort of competitive in this race, but he's hanging with it.
You know, I'd say Josh might have a little bit too much damage to maybe lead the race, but you know, if you get in that draft just right, and it can basically cover up a lot of the blemishes as far as the aerodynamics go.
And he's holding the flag for the private label Team Hype team because Richard Regan Jr. is not here today. I'm actually checking to see if they've got a third somewhere. Yeah, Abner Acosta is the other one, but he's, of course, down the order as we once again glance at Kreiner and White. Now, the 27 is definitely been hiding underneath that rear spoiler for much of the laps. They're going to get 3 to go this time by, and he takes a little poke, gets himself some air in the corner, jumps back down, tries to push yet again. Already 223, 224 miles an hour.
Man, the speed here is just insane as he is glued to the tailgate of Kreiner.
At what point do we see Chatley make a move? Is he working with Brandon Adams as well? Can the 43 try to spoil the party since he's a lap down? And then behind them, Charles Sumner has been incredibly patient and leaving a gap as well. We watch the onboard of Chatley in that 59, looking up ahead at those two. Popsicle sticks as they come to the line.
Yeah, Brendan looks awfully relaxed for the position he's in right now, Joe.
There's our answer. It looks like Brandon Adams intentionally pulling out of the way. He is not going to get involved.
I'm really curious what we'll see the 59 do here in these closing laps, Joe. He's in a really good position.
This is where things can get sketchy. A caution can still come out here with 2 to go. But once they cross that line next time, that's it. The race is official. Still nobody quite making moves yet. Some little pokes and prods from Elliott White thinking about it. Who makes it when? Who decides this is the time to go? This is where I take that slingshot. White flag is out. We're going green to the end with a single caution this evening.
Now, ideally for Chatley, he'd have some help behind him, but he doesn't, so he's laying back right now. He's got to try to get a run down this back straightaway, Joe, or it's not going to happen for him.
And White's still pushing. He's still bringing Kreiner along. Look at this. They're dropping Chatley. Now Chatley's getting overtaken. Sumner looking at his outside with Zemke pushing.
But is Elliott White pushing Kreiner out there to leave him hung out to dry? It's going to come down to these two out of turn 4, Joe.
As he set him up, he looks for the over, then he looks for the under, and he's going to go to the outside. It's going to be a drag race to the line. He's got a nose ahead, and you're right, Elliott White has taken the win, but barely over Justin Kreiner and Brennan Chatley, who came in on the inside with an incredible run to take it down to the end. Let's take another look at that. We almost missed out on that. Fantastic stuff with Chatley having Evans shove him way up there at 227 miles an hour. And the top 3 were split by less than 1/10 of a second. That's Chatley in the gray and green. Here he comes. If it was another 50 feet, he would have had that victory.
Yeah, you said less than 1/10, Joe. These guys were half a tenth separated first to third.
Amazing stuff here for the finish. Well, despite some of the doom and gloom and the naysaying, this actually wound up being a fantastic race coming right down to the end. But we're going to take a quick break and come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. So stick around. Welcome back to iRacing Superspeedway. Round 2 of the PRL NASCAR Truck Series wound up coming down to the wire. What a finish with Elliott White winning and Justin Kreiner only 3/100ths behind him at the end. It was Brennan Chatley who nearly got to the inside of them, 5/100ths behind the leader at the end, and Doug Evans who finished in 4th. Charles Sumner, P5 from 24th on the grid, was followed by Adam Zemke in 6th. Mike Richter was 7th, and then Austin Hunter was 8th. Daniel Ferguson finished P9 with Bradley Hawley, last season's champion, winding up 10th.
Just outside of the top 10 is Abner Acosta in 11th, followed by Colton Lane in 12th, Mark Kalin 13th, then Jim Westerfield in 14th over Nicholas Schwartz, Matthew Colhanick in 16th, with Nicholas Hunter, Josh Conker, Adam Shane, and Dominic Beijing completing the top 20.
21st goes to Daniel Knight with Dalton Geyer in 22nd. Patrick Cowgill was 23rd in the end, with Baron Hilton 24th, last on the lead lap. Some drivers who ran into trouble and didn't get the strategy right were Sink, Young, Cervantes, Brandon Adams, Marcus Miller, Brett Adams, Greg Corzin, Jose Medina, John LaBaff, and Josh Canova. We've got our winner here to talk to us, Elliott White. Elliott, congratulations. We saw you waiting, pushing, looking for that last lap. Was that all to design?
Yeah, it went a lot better than I expected, to be honest. I was really expecting Chatley behind me to be able to do something, but he had to defend off the other guys. So I guess it did kind of work all to design, even though it wasn't what I expected. So yeah, it worked out really well.
What about with the sort of off-canter pit strategy that some of the drivers had used? Did it make you a bit nervous that some of them were a bit counter to what you guys had done with the caution?
Oh yeah, I thought I was toast, actually. I mean, I knew that it was, I think it was the private label guys who were working together, and I knew I didn't have any teammates, and I was expecting a caution again at some point, and then was just going to pit then. But I almost thought I did too well executing on pit road because there wasn't really anyone around. But luckily it worked out. I'm not really sure where we gained all that time, to be honest. But yeah, it worked out really well.
Well, I heard a lot of discussion in the forums before this race took off, even wondering if we were going to race at this track. What's your thoughts now that you've got to experience the PRL here at iRacing Superspeedway?
This is actually my first time on the track as well. Well, first time racing this in any actual race. Yeah, it was something I wasn't looking forward to that much. I am a fan of Superspeedway racing. This track races very, very differently though than a traditional Superspeedway. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be happy to get back to a track that isn't dirt and a track that is real. But I mean, it's something different. So I'm glad it worked out. I feel like it was really a toss-up, and the race went a lot better than I expected it to go after practice. So there was that. So it was a fun experience overall in the race.
Well, I'm glad it was enjoyable at least, but I can understand the need for some normalcy. Again, congratulations on the win, going from 4th to 1st today.
Yeah, thank you guys for the broadcast, and also I'd like to thank Aaron and Jerome at PRL for letting me race this. I know I'm in a much better position than a lot of people who are racing in the series are in terms of payment and my position, stuff like that. So I'm not taking it for granted.
That was Elliott White, Victor, here today at iRacing Superspeedway. Up next, Chris has caught up with Justin Kreiner, who was just behind him at the line.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, that was intense there, to say the least. I want to give a big shout out mainly to No Chen, my mentor. I didn't want to block too hard.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Justin, you led right up there to probably the last couple of feet. Did you know you were getting kind of set up to get hung out like that, or?
Yeah, I kind of knew it was coming. running the official races all the time, I know first place is not where you want to be come the finish, because it's almost guaranteed that's going to happen. But realistically, I just wanted to finish the race. I wanted to place decently and get the points for the team, considering my teammate wrecked out early in the race. So I was really just shooting for the finish to get the points for the team.
Now, if given the chance to do that finish over again, is there anything else you would have tried to have done differently?
I'm not completely positive. I probably would have tried to block a little harder than I did. I'm new here. I didn't want to be that guy that comes out of the gate and gets known as the guy that will wreck you trying to block you from taking the lead.
Now, this is definitely an oddball track compared to what pretty much all of us are used to. What are your thoughts as we leave the iRacing Superspeedway?
It's definitely a crazy track. It is a blast. It will get your adrenaline pumping like no other track I have run on yet. It's a blast though. It's definitely weird and quirky. It's hard to form a lineup on the top. You want to get down bottom and just hope the person in front of you kind of either clips the apron or slides up a little high and you can squeeze in there without them coming down on you.
All right, Justin, anybody you want to thank to help make today possible for you?
Really, it would be my teammate Josh. He's kind of been by my side. He got me into iRacing. I don't have any sponsors yet or anything like that. And most of all, I want to really desperately thank my girlfriend. She knows I put a ton of time into the sim, and I pretty much dedicate my time off work to doing so. And I'm hoping to make the dream come alive. And it's looking pretty well so far this season for us with a second place finish. So a big shout out to those two people.
All right, well, that was Justin Kreiner, our second place finisher tonight. Back to you, Joe.
Yep, we've got third place Brennan Chatley in there. And Brennan, coming along into turn 3, you looked a long ways back. You even caught us by a surprise at the end. How surprised were you to be that close to a victory?
Not too surprised, actually. I saw Charles laying back from me in turn 1 there, and I was like, I got to lay back a little bit. Charles got to me, but I know on the inside there, if I stayed, got to the inside on turns 3 and 4, that I would be all right, and almost got there too.
We were kind of curious what the engine temperatures were like out there today, because it was a relatively warm day, but we hadn't experienced a track like this, and especially without the plates on the trucks. Were there any problems trying to make sure that you didn't blow it up?
No, I think I really didn't pay any attention to it during the race. I think the highest I saw it get during practice was like 240 or so.
Oh, that's good news. One less thing to worry about in what I'm sure was a race full of distractions. This will help you still, as you were 5th coming into this round, and 3rd in the points will certainly bump you up just a little bit, especially since a couple of the drivers around you didn't compete today. How do you feel about what this does championship-wise with a pretty decent start?
Yeah, it's definitely caught me by surprise when I saw Bristol Dirt and this iRacing Superspeedway on the first 2 races. I was like, one top 10, I'll take it out of 2 races, but come away with 2 top 5s. I even caught myself by surprise there.
Well, I think that's a good surprise to have for sure. Well, congratulations on that. I'd ask who helped make this one happen, but I think we know the answers to that.
Yeah, definitely ETC. When you have the resources available to make this kind of backdrop, might as well use them. And then, of course, Roman Delight, inline 309, and home at last.
Well, thanks for talking to us and giving us the great views. That was Brennan Chatley in the 59 truck this afternoon, who brought home a podium. But that is going to wrap up our interviews for this evening. So let's talk about our sponsors before we head out and thank them. Of course, Simulation Motorsports Affinity can be found at SIMMSA.net if you want to get involved in the world of sim racing. And then the longtime sponsor of the PRL is NinjaTrader. Their website is at NinjaTrader.com. And finally, for all of your sim rig needs, go to thebuttkicker.com and help fancy up your rig that way. That'll also bring us to a thank you to our companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts. Of course, listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to Julie Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Sean, Chris, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenv.com. Link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC, because up next is Chicagoland, Wednesday, April 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.